Hi, welcome to the show. My name is Jesse Goldberg, and my guest today is Bob Farnsworth from Hummingbird Productions.
I thought you were on my show. I don't understand. I was just getting ready to introduce. This is Jesse Goldberg, and we're happy to have you.
The infamous Jesse Goldberg. the fat right. Jesse Goldberg.
No, keep that camera up. Okay.
All right. Anyway, tell me about yourself. Where are you from?
I'm from Greenville, South Carolina.
Greenville, South Carolina, and you came to Nashville when?
I came to Nashville almost 50 years ago, in 1974.
Did you start? I mean, you do something different than most people. You do jingles,
well, that's what I got going in. But I started. I was an artist with ABC Records.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And yeah, I didn't
have records out.
No.
They were stuck on the shelf somewhere.
Here's the deal. I came to Nashville because I wanted to be a missionary up the Amazon River. And I figured, okay, if I come to Nashville and make a record, then that would be a quick way to make money. And my mother was an amazing musician, so I got enough of her genes to be naturally good with music. And a guy, Mike Hudson, came with me, and I had a deal with him. Look, I'm going to do this for 2 or 3 years, and hopefully we'll make some good money here, and I'm going to use mine to do this mission. Are you okay with that if I sort of leave you? And he said, well, okay. So we came to Nashville and then had the ridiculous opportunity to stay with this family that knew, good grief.
Well, you knew the guy, so what happened?
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that. I'd be so embarrassed if he didn't think that I knew his name. But whatever, we came and he had written, it's the most beautiful girl in the world. You know, if you happen to see the most beautiful girl.
Oh, I know that guy. I had him on the show. It's,
Rory Burke. Good grief. So Rory let us meet with him, and we played our first 3 songs, and he sort of stops in the middle, and I thought he was going to go, what are you guys doing in Nashville? You're more pop. And instead, yeah, you guys I love this. And he said, I want to take you to Henry Hurt, who was with Chapel Publishing. And Henry said, yeah, like this a lot. And so we went to Don Gant at ABC Records and did a demo for him. And this all happened within a week or so. And in a couple of weeks, we had a major contract.
A week when you got to Nashville?
Yeah, we were here, and 2 weeks later, we had this major deal.
So what happened to the deal?
And so we were supposed to be the next Simon & Garfunkel, and when the record came out, it was right when disco came out. And so our Simon & Garfunkel momentarily went away. James Taylor, everybody had sort of this, everything went disco. And so the guys that were supposed to be the next Simon & Garfunkel, our record, our sort of comment about that is, well, our record started out kind of slow, but it tapered off from there.
So did you have to have 45? Did you have
No, it was an album, yeah.
So there was an ABC album with, what's the name of the album?
It's called From Night to Day with Hudson and Farnsworth.
Hudson and Farnsworth.
So if you dig, you can find it. But like I say, it went out there and it
I have a lot of albums, like 30,000. Maybe I have it somewhere.
Yeah, you might. And if you don't, I'll tell you what. If you'll give me one of your records.
But I already gave you one of those.
Yeah, but you haven't officially. They're sitting down here. I mean, when we leave and I actually go out of here and I have these in my hands, then I'll believe you actually gave them to me. Fair enough. Yeah, no, but I'll be glad to give you. If you are an album collector, then, huh?
I'm an album seller. I'm a parasite on the music business.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, well, don't sell my
vulture vulture on the music business.
Yeah, so that's how why I came to Nashville, and then because the album didn't take off, I was with this landlord we had, and he was drunk one night, and I was telling him that I was going to go back to Greenville and sell life insurance for my dad and just start all over there and try to raise money for the mission work there. And he says, Bobby, let me tell you something. You're going to go down to Greenville, South Carolina, and you're going to yeah, you're going to sell life insurance for your daddy for about 3 years later. You're going to wake up one day and say, what the hell am I doing down here selling life insurance? And you're going to come right back up here to Nashville. You got to start all over. You got you an album, you got good friends, you got a good church. That's what's going to happen. And I thought about that. I thought, you know what, you might be right about that.
So what happened?
So I stayed. And then I was getting ready to get married, and so I needed to make some kind of money. And so I cleaned gutters for a while just to be able to pay the apartment bill. And then there was a guy at our church that did commercials, music for jingles.
Right.
I don't even use that word much anymore. And I did that for a while with him, and
Now,
then
what do you
started
mean you
doing it
did
on my
that?
own.
You did that with him? Like you
Well, I
wrote
went
for him
down-
and he sold the jingles for you?
No, actually, my deal at first was, let me see if I can go sell these things for you. And I did, and then I started writing them as well. So it kind of got to be, I would get the account and I would write the commercial. And that was something that came fairly naturally to me. Maybe it's
So
because
you get the account before you wrote the jingle or commercial?
Well, you get the opportunity.
Right.
In the jingle business, actually, that's
It's
probably a good
competition, right?
transition to how it kind of works.
Okay.
I didn't used to understand when I saw a billboard and it had a slogan on it or whatever. I just thought the company made those things up, right? I didn't even know the concept of what they call an advertising agency. But I fairly quickly learned that an advertising agency aggregates all these has a bunch of different clients. And back in the day, everybody had to have a company song, right? And they called those jingles. And so a creative director would be someone who would have a bunch of writers under him and at the larger agencies. And those writers would come up with a slogan, and the creative director would decide which one they're going to go with. They would present that to their client. If the client liked the line or liked the idea, then they would develop that. And in the development of that line, they would have different companies compete to do
The jingle.
the jingle.
Right.
And so I would get those opportunities, and we would do a demo, and they would give you a small fee for doing a demo, just so you're not doing it for totally nothing. And then it was extremely competitive. You usually were competing with a minimum of 3 different companies. And we were good at it. And so we started winning local stuff and that moved into regional, and then we got some McDonald's opportunities.
You got McDonald's? What was the first company that you did it with? Remember?
Do I ever? You don't ever forget these kind of things. So it was for Granny Loomis Country Sausage.
And where was that?
And it was from Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay.
So we started locally, right?
Right.
And so he said, I've got to have this jingle, and I've got to have it in 3 weeks. And can you pull this off? I mean, you did an album. You must
Right.
be musical enough to do that kind of stuff. And he said, the only thing I'm looking for is different. Okay, well, you're talking to the right guy here. But that's the only parameter he gave me, right? So about 2 weeks later, I come back with this commercial, and it was a radio commercial. And so he's only got a week left, right? So hoping he likes this thing that we did. But it was a radio drama, and Granny Loomis Country Sausage, right? So it starts off with this, I can't do it, my mouth is dry. Here, I see it. So it starts out with sound effects of,
Right.
of somebody brushing their teeth.
But was there a song to it?
It won't take but a second to do this because I know it well. And the sound effects, brushing teeth.
Right.
And then Granny Loomis comes in the room and says, "Why, what are you doing there, young lady?" And she says, "Well, hey there, Granny Loomis, I just sitting here brushing my tooth." She says, "Well, why should you brush that tooth when you could carry around the flavor of Granny Loomis Country Sausage all day long?" And she said, "Well, Granny, my husband, he says he don't like that too much." And so then the door slams and the husband comes in and says, "What are you talking about there, old lady? Honey, you go right on ahead and brush that tooth." Well, this upsets Granny Loomis greatly, and so you have sound effects of dishes breaking and things crashing, and she's screaming at this guy and says, "Why, you uncaring, unfaithful beast, I ought to chop you up in my sausage and feed you to the pigs." And then the music, for no apparently apparent reason, it's like a Louis Armstrong voice comes in. And it's like, you can brush that tooth, but what a waste to brush away that granulomous country sausage taste. But if you insist on having that sex appeal, you'll have to brush your teeth before your granulomous meal. Right? So,
Did they use that one?
so wait, I come in to the guy, present it to him, and he says, he saw that the tape was running out, right? It was back in the real things, and he saw that when the tape runs out, the end of the thing flops down, right?
Right.
And he realized that I didn't have anything else with me. no other tape with me. And he said, that's it? And I said, yeah, it's different, isn't it? And man, he just cut loose. He thought I was crazy, which at the time, that was wacko. You could probably get away with that stupid commercial now. They would probably like that commercial now. But man, this guy got furious. And I said, well, don't you have a partner? He said, yeah. I said, well, won't you let him at least hear it? He said, son, do you want to work with this company ever again? I said, well, yeah, of course. He said, well, you don't want me to play that for my partner. And he threw me out. And it didn't matter whether it's Pepsi, Coke, McDonald's, or any of the things that we've done. That we never did work with that.
Never did. All right, so let's go back to let's go to the business of jingles. How does it work? How's it different than the business of regular songs, payment-wise, and all that kind of stuff?
Well, it's structured around, instead of record labels, it's structured around advertising agencies.
Okay.
And again, this is the earlier part of my whole life in Nashville. But it's structured around an advertising agency. And as I'd mentioned, advertising agencies collect accounts and they come up with lines for those accounts or major themes. And then at a certain point, they can't have music companies and film companies on staff, or at least at that time they couldn't because of the equipment, the barriers to entry to any of those industries was just too expensive, and it didn't make sense
So they go to different
anyway.
various jingle companies and.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and you at that time now are a jingle company, sort of.
Yes, that's
Right.
correct.
So people know about you and they come to you and they say, and you're one of like three, like you said, or something like that.
Yeah,
they go
or
through
more,
and
yeah.
or more, and they compete.
Yeah.
And they give you the phrase, or you have to come up with the phrase.
Well, they give you the phrase, and they may or may not give you the lyrics. I guess the bigger the agency, the more likely they were to give you the lyric as well.
Now, do you hire other writers out to do things, or do you do it all yourself?
In the beginning, I did them myself, and then as I added people, we had 16 people at one time, which is really too many people for music, for commercials. But that's because we had a New York office and a Chicago office and a Detroit office and the Nashville office at one point. And so obviously Nashville was the main, that's where most of the people were, but we had a couple of people in all these other places that were marketing and could also write as well.
Marketing meaning they were trying to get the accounts.
Yeah, marketing
Okay.
meaning you're visiting advertising agencies,
Right.
and sitting down, becoming friends, and hopefully they enjoy you as a person, but mainly that only gets you so far.
Did you watch Mad Men, the TV show?
I did some, and there was a lot of similarity, but Mad Men was more of an era where, and I think it was more focused on the executives than it was the creatives, but it was a different era than what I went through, and I suppose the main thing was in that time. You sort of had an art director and a writer, and they worked pretty independently. And then eventually, David Ogilvy, with Ogilvy and Mather, which is another huge agency, said, wait a minute, it's not like the artist has no concept of the English language, and it's not like the guy that's writing the script has no concept of visuals. Why don't we get these guys to work as teams? And so in my era, it was more of these guys were, as a matter of fact, I think if they had really thought about it, the show might have been much more interesting if they had brought it into a little more recent era where you got to see some of the dynamics.
Well, in the last episode, they had this guy. They used the "I Like to Teach the World to Sing"
Yep.
as the commercial.
Yep.
In fact, the guy who wrote that, one of the writers was Roger Cook was.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
Great song. One of the probably the most, I think maybe the most famous commercial ever done. But we've done a lot of Coke stuff since then, and that's always sort of the earmark of a great spot.
If you do something well for a company, they come back to you again for the next time.
Depends, but they will.
They'll come back to get a bid on or whatever you have.
Yeah, that's what you count on. But you're always competing. I mean,
do you compete money wise too? Do you have to make a bid money wise, or they just how does the money work? How does the money
for
work?
The education of people that are you've heard the old thing, whoever speaks first in a negotiation loses. Well, I think that's probably pretty much true. And so if they're, sometimes they will just say, we got this budget, can you work with it, right? But more often than not, they would say, what budget would it be? And what I offer is, what I would say is, it's not really telling them much. And it would be, for example, I would say, okay, for Pepsi, it was $100,000 for the international stuff that we did for that.
And that's a flat out fee. You don't get any more than that.
Yeah.
Right,
No.
Just a buyout.
No, if you sang on it, everything we do is
But for writers wise, that's it.
Pardon?
For a writer, and not singing on it, but if you're just a
Oh
writer.
no, even then you've got ASCAP and BMI and CSAC.
Oh really?
You can still,
I thought,
you can
okay. I didn't
register,
know that.
but you have to register it. It's not enough to where if it's not a pretty big commercial, it's probably not.
I always thought that jingles were buyouts, but they're not.
No, not necessarily. Well, they can be for the writing can be for more local stuff because it's just too complicated to deal with that at the local level, and so they don't want to deal with all that.
Right.
But at the national level, somebody was asking for bid. I say, for example, Coke might be well. Let's say I'm just thinking of a specific campaign. It was $100,000, and or a regional job may be more like a 20 to 30 range, and a local job might be in more of the 10 range. Well, I haven't really told them that much, especially if it's in a middle range. And you can feel from them when you throw out 100 and they go, no way.
Right. I know what you
mean. Then you know you need to be in another region of budgeting.
Right.
But if they don't balk at that, then you realize these people are willing to, it sounds like you're just playing a game with them, but what you are is finding out how serious they are about what you do. And if it's in the $100,000 range, man, we've hired 15 people on one job. We give them the information. And we say, there's a big competition, but then they can be compensated well from that too.
But they compete with each other.
Yes,
right.
Always. I'm competing with people as well.
Jingle singers, you said they get money too.
Yeah, jingle singers are probably the highest paid for sure for the amount of time and energy they've got. They're on a national commercial. A background singer can easily make $5,000.
Who's paying these people? Where's that money come from?
Okay, great question. The agencies are signatory, as we are signatory to the unions. We're signatory to the local here for F of M and ASCAP. And then the agencies, let's just say they're in Chicago, they're signatory there. And so the deal is these are the people that we will use, and when in that agreement, the musicians get repayments every quarter for how many every years that spot runs, and so do the singers. But the singer is considered to be very unique. They've done a great job of negotiating that concept that there's nobody like the singer. And so the singer on a big national spot could make $40,000, $50,000. As a matter of fact,
you got to get it reviewed, and it gets renewed. They make more.
Yeah, over time.
Right. Okay.
But generally speaking, there's going to be a lifetime span on them, and usually they're not more than 3 years. So a song has forever longevity.
Right.
It might make more in the short term.
Now, what about before we run out of time? What about the songs that the people use famous songs. Have you heard about the Tomorrow?
Sure.
They get $1 million or something to use that song.
Correct. And
Do
that
you
would
ever
be-
do anything like that where you represent a song?
We have negotiated for an agency sometimes, because if we go to a publishing company, then the publishing company may be thinking, oh, okay, you might be bringing us several things, whereas if somebody just comes with them one-off, then the publishing company is more likely to think, okay, this is our big chance to make some good money on that song. So it might be easier for us to negotiate for them in that situation, if that makes sense.
But the advertising, the guy who's in the advertising agency, doesn't he sometimes say, this song will be perfect
Yeah.
for our commercial?
Yeah, and they will either go to us to negotiate for them, or more often they'll go to directly to the publisher, and the publisher will usually charge them a lot of money, more money than we would have charged them for doing a commercial.
Right, and whoever makes the first offer that's the ceiling right there. I know about that.
Yeah, right.
Right. How much you want for that? Well, what are you willing to
pay
give
for it?
Right.
Exactly. So,
And then they say, well, it's your item. What do you want for it?
yeah.
That's-
And then
goes
in
back and forth.
negotiating, there's always the thing of if you give somebody a price and they say, there's no way I'm going to pay that, then you can say, well, how many years do you want this? What area do you want it to? And the more things that they are willing to give, the more you have the legitimacy to back down. You do it on the assumption that they want it all, and then you back off based on what they're willing to give, and then you usually get it into a realm that they are willing to pay.
I have a little experience in it. In the 1980s, I wrote a song that was used as a commercial, and for every different station that wanted to use it, I had to negotiate the price. And sometimes, they'd offer me $500. Sometimes they'd offer me $100. Sometimes $1,000. And I have to, I wanted the deal. I mean, what have I got to lose? So. That's the only experience I had with it, though.
Yeah.
then that
But that was some. What did you think about that experience? I mean, was it a positive one, or?
I felt like I was getting free money for because it was like local TV stations using this song.
Yeah. How
And
did they find out about your song?
it was fairly famous, I guess. Yeah. So it was on Showtime for a long time.
Oh, okay.
Then it was on Turner Broadcasting or TBS, and it got around, and it was, they called me. I said, okay, I try to get as much as I can, and
Do you remember who offered the price first, or do you remember the negotiation?
Well, the first one was Showtime, but that was a different. I got that deal a different way. I got that somebody. It was an inside thing. I got.
Oh, and they probably told you how much they would be willing to pay, right?
I had a lawyer who did
okay.
negotiation.
Okay.
So it was something they wanted. It's a long story, and it's not long enough to tell on here.
Okay.
But it did win an award.
Well, that's
it did win
good.
an award. I'll tell you off camera.
Yeah. All right.
So tell me more about what are you doing? Are you still doing this whole thing? Hummingbird? You said you had Detroit, Chicago, and all that.
Yeah.
Is that all
But
gone?
the entire, and probably most people know this, it's interesting that the evolution of commercials was, technology changed a lot of the way all that worked. And so when technology made it where people could do stuff synthetically, and you didn't need to use real musicians and that sort of stuff.
Right.
It got to be more localized. And so the person could just go down the street in Chicago and they could oversee somebody that was there. And so it was more and more difficult to build the relationships to bring them down. And because part of the whole thing is becoming friends with people, and they feel like they can rely on you. And it was harder and harder to get people to come to another place. So the music tended to get localized.
The studio, you could do, one guy in a studio could do everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so that got to be a very popular thing. There were other elements where, and Hummingbird, I'd say, maybe we're a little bit guilty of this, because we so much wanted to do stuff that was more of a song than just a, quote, jingle, that we would often say, now, do you really need to say your name? Do we have to say First Pennsylvania Bank or whatever? Do we really have to do that? Because that definitely makes it a jingle. And they're like, yeah, I guess we could, yeah, we could just make it more music or whatever. But we were cutting our own throat in doing that, because as soon as you get rid of the name, then any pop song can work. You just make it whatever the theme. There are so many song themes out there. For example, if you were to say, you're doing some kind of charcoal company, and you say, well, let's look on the computer, all things that mention in the chorus of their song something about cooking. You come across, say, oh, how about this one? Hey, good looking, what you got cooking? Yeah, that'd be great. So you buy that song, you don't need to go to the music company. You just go and buy a song like that. So a lot of the jingle, so to speak, process got eliminated. And then, because they weren't saying the name of the product, the whole idea of people feeling like they had to have a company song sort of went away. And then that evolved into, well, let's just put the song up there. We don't have to just pull up the theme at the end of a hit song, hey, good looking. Let's just make something that goes with the song. And so that sort of took it away from the industry of making songs specifically for a specific company.
It still happens, but not as often.
You've got, the Pillow song, the pillow.com. You've got just a handful of them that still have a jingle, but they're not, McDonald's still running, ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm loving it. But they don't even really say I guess they still, I'm loving it, it's a slogan. That's been extremely successful for them. But like we did the first Chick-fil-A commercials, and then Dan Cathy said to me one day, Bob, I have some bad news for you. The cows, remember the cows, they eat more chicken. He said, they're not gonna be singing at all. It's been a decision, there won't be any. So the evolution away from having your own company song just went away. And so that created a whole new hole in the industry.
We are out of time.
Okay, well, it's been great.
Anyway, my guest has been Bob Farnsworth, and I'm Jesse Goldberg, and we'll see you next week on another edition of the show.